The year is 1092. In the heart of the Seljuk Empire, a powerful vizier named Nizam al-Mulk falls to a single blade wielded by a young man dressed as a Sufi dervish. This is no ordinary murder. It is the calculated strike of a new force that will reshape the medieval Islamic world. For the next century and a half, a small but extraordinary sect will hold the mighty Crusader states, Ayyubid sultans and Mongol khans, in a grip of terror through the precise art of assassination. In the fractured landscape of 11th century Persia and Syria, where Sunni and Shia Muslims battle for supremacy, a radical Ismaili movement emerges from the mountains of northern Iran. Led by the enigmatic Hassan-i Sabbah from their impregnable fortress of Alamut, these are the Nizari Ismailis. History knows them as the assassins. This is their true story. Not the hashish-fueled fantasies of medieval chroniclers, but the remarkable tale of how a small religious minority created one of history's first terrorist networks, established an independent state that lasted 166 years, and developed assassination into a precise political weapon. Welcome to Unleash Facts, the place where history secrets, unsolved mysteries and mind-blowing truths come to light. Far from the mythologized figures of legend, the assassins were sophisticated political actors who used targeted killing as a strategic tool to survive and thrive in a hostile medieval world. Pioneers of psychological warfare whose methods would echo through centuries. In 1090, a middle-aged scholar stands before the massive gates of Alamut Castle, high in the Alborz mountains of northern Iran. His name is Hassan-i Sabbah, and he is about to change the course of Islamic history forever. The 11th century Islamic world pulses with religious and political upheaval. The Alamut state was founded by Hassan-i Sabbah after he took control of the Alamut castle in 1090 AD. But to understand this moment, we must first grasp the complex religious landscape that gave birth to the Nizari Ismailis. Islam had already fractured into Sunni and Shia branches over succession to the Prophet Muhammad. Within Shia Islam, the Ismailis represented a further split, recognizing only 7 imams as rightful successors to the Prophet, in contrast to the 12 Imam Shias. The Nizari Ismailis were a splinter sect of Shiite Muslims. Their name derived from their adherence to the teachings of 2 radical Shiite leaders, an 8th century Imam named Ismail and a 12th century Imam named Nizar. The Fatimid Caliphate in Egypt had long provided protection for Ismaili communities, but by the late 11th century, even this refuge faced internal strife. When the Fatimid Caliph al-Mustansir died in 1094, a succession crisis erupted between his sons Nizar and al-Mustali. The Ismailis who supported Nizar's claim, the Nizaris, found themselves persecuted minorities in a Sunni-dominated world ruled by the powerful Seljuk Empire. The Seljuk Turks, Orthodox Sunni Muslims, had swept across Persia and established one of the largest empires of the medieval period. Their vizier, Nizam al-Mulk, implemented policies that systematically marginalized Shia communities. Ismaili scholars, merchants, and craftsmen faced increasing persecution, their properties confiscated, their lives threatened. It is into this world of religious persecution and political fragmentation that Hassan-i Sabbah emerges, not as a wild-eyed fanatic, but as a calculated revolutionary who would transform his oppressed community into one of the medieval world's most feared political forces. The geography of this story spans from the mountain fortresses of northern Iran to the Crusader castles of Syria and Lebanon. These are lands where empires collide. The Seljuk Turks, the Byzantine Empire, the emerging Crusader states, and the Ayyubid dynasty all compete for dominance. In this fractured landscape, small but organized groups could punch far above their weight. But who was this Hassan-i Sabbah? And how did a middle-aged scholar become the founder of the world's first organized assassination network? To understand the man behind the movement, We must journey back to his early life in the intellectual circles of 11th century Persia. Born around 1050 in the city of Qom, Hassan-i Sabbah grows up in a world where knowledge is power and religious debate shapes political destiny. His journey from scholar to revolutionary begins in the great libraries and theological schools of medieval Persia. Hassan-i Sabbah's early life remains partially shrouded in mystery, but contemporary sources paint a picture of a brilliant and passionate intellectual. Born into a 12 Shia family, he receives an exceptional education in theology, philosophy, and law. His intellectual prowess brings him to the attention of leading scholars and eventually to the Seljuk court itself. The young Hassan demonstrates remarkable abilities in mathematics, astronomy, and religious jurisprudence. According to later accounts, he serves for a time in the administration of the Seljuk Empire, possibly under the famous vizier Nizam al-Mulk. However, his growing sympathy for Ismaili theology puts him on a collision course with orthodox Sunni authorities. The conversion moment comes through contact with Ismaili missionaries, known as dais, who present Hassan with a sophisticated theological framework that promises esoteric knowledge and spiritual enlightenment. Unlike the rigid orthodoxy of Sunni Islam, Ismailism offers a mystical interpretation of religious texts and claims direct spiritual descent from the Prophet Muhammad through his cousin and son-in-law, Ali. Around 1072, Hassan undertakes a transformative journey to Cairo, the seat of the Fatimid Caliphate and the center of Ismaili learning. Here, he studies advanced Ismaili theology and witnesses firsthand how an Ismaili state operates. The Fatimid court, with its emphasis on esoteric knowledge, scientific advancement, and religious tolerance, provides Hassan with a model for his future endeavors. However, Hassan's time in Cairo also reveals the internal weaknesses of Ismaili power. The Fatimid military relies heavily on foreign mercenaries, their economy struggles under external pressure, and court intrigues threaten the stability of the regime. Hassan begins to envision a different approach, smaller, more disciplined, and strategically positioned to maximize impact despite limited resources. Returning to Persia around 1081, Hassan finds the situation for Ismailis has deteriorated significantly. Hassan-i Sabbah was not an imam, but a da'i, in Arabic da'i, someone who invites. As a da'i, he begins secretly organizing Ismaili communities throughout northern Iran, establishing a network of supporters and identifying potential strongholds. The choice of Alamut Castle as his base represents strategic genius. Alamut's strategic location, perched atop a steep rock with breathtaking views of the surrounding valleys, provides both defensive advantages and symbolic power. The castle's name, meaning eagle's nest, captures its commanding position over the Alamut Valley. Archaeological evidence suggests that Alamut had been fortified for centuries before Hassan's arrival, serving various local rulers as a mountain retreat. The castle's water systems, storage facilities, and defensive walls indicate sophisticated engineering, capable of withstanding prolonged sieges. By 1090, Hassan has assembled his network of supporters and identified his target. The capture of Alamut will not come through siege engines or massive armies, but through patient infiltration and psychological manipulation, methods that will become the hallmark of the assassin organization. In the autumn of 1090, Hassan-i Sabbah approaches Alamut Castle not as a conqueror, but as a traveling scholar seeking refuge. What happens next demonstrates the sophisticated psychological warfare that will define the assassin movement for the next century and a half. The capture of Alamut represents one of history's most elegant conquests. Rather than direct assault, Hassan employs a strategy of gradual infiltration that would become his signature method. In 1090 AD, the Alamut castle, a mountain fortress in present-day Iran, came into the possession of Hassan-i Sabbah, but the process began months earlier. Hassan's agents, posing as merchants, craftsmen, and religious pilgrims, gradually established themselves in the Alamut Valley. They buy property, marry into local families, and slowly convert the population to Ismaili beliefs. The castle's garrison, originally loyal to the Seljuk-appointed governor, finds itself increasingly outnumbered by Ismaili sympathizers within their own ranks. When Hassan finally presents himself at the castle gates, he does so with the confidence of a man who already controls the territory. According to later accounts, the Seljuk commander Mahdi recognizes that resistance is futile. In a bloodless coup, Hassan simply presents the governor with a draft on a bank in Isfahan for 3,000 gold dinars as payment for the castle, and Mahdi departs without violence. The symbolic power of this conquest cannot be overstated. In 1090 AD, Hassan-i Sabbah, the leader of Ismailites in Iran, chose the Alamut region as his headquarters to campaign, preach and convert new followers. From this impregnable mountain fortress, Hassan begins transforming the Nizari Ismailis from a persecuted religious minority into a formidable political force. The first years at Alamut focus on consolidation and expansion. Hassan establishes a rigorous educational program, training young men in theology, languages, and what contemporary sources euphemistically call specialized skills. He ruled in Alamut from 1090 to 1124, during which time he never leaves the castle, dedicating himself entirely to building his organization. The fortress itself undergoes massive expansion. Archaeological evidence reveals extensive construction projects, expanded living quarters, sophisticated water storage systems, workshops for weapon manufacturing, and most intriguingly, a substantial library. Hassan-i Sabbah also established a library within the castle, amassing one of the rarest collections of ancient books, which would eventually contain 400,000 volumes of vital scientific manuscripts. This library serves multiple purposes beyond education. It becomes a center for intelligence gathering, where agents study the histories, genealogies, and personal habits of potential targets. Maps, court documents, and personal correspondence fill the archives, creating what modern intelligence agencies would recognize as a comprehensive target database. The assassin recruitment process emphasizes quality over quantity. Young men, often from educated families, undergo years of training in multiple languages, religious doctrine, and the arts of disguise and infiltration. Unlike conventional armies that rely on mass formations, the assassins develop small units of highly trained specialists capable of operating independently in hostile territory. The first major test of Hassan's new organization comes in 1092 with the assassination of Nizam al-Mulk. The Seljuk vizier, architect of anti-Ismaili policies, represents everything Hassan opposes. The assassination, carried out by a young assassin disguised as a Sufi mystic, demonstrates the organization's reach and sophistication. The killer approaches his target during a public ceremony, strikes with a poisoned blade, and dies immediately afterward, establishing the pattern of suicide missions that will define assassin operations. The death of Nizam al-Mulk sends shockwaves throughout the Islamic world. A new player has emerged in the deadly game of medieval politics, one that can strike anywhere, anytime, and against anyone. But this first assassination is just the beginning of a campaign that will reshape the balance of power across the Middle East. Following the assassination of Nizam al-Mulk, Sultan Malik Shah III of the Seljuk Empire declares war on the Nizari Ismailis. What follows is not a conventional war of armies and sieges, but a deadly game of cat and mouse that will test Hassan-i Sabbah, his revolutionary approach to asymmetric warfare. The Seljuk response to Nizam al-Mulk's assassination reveals both the empire's strength and its vulnerabilities. Malik Shah I commands vast armies, controls major trade routes, and enjoys the support of orthodox Sunni religious authorities. However, his empire's size creates security challenges that Hassan's organization is uniquely positioned to exploit. The first Seljuk assault on Alamut begins in 1092, led by a massive army intent on crushing the Ismaili revolt before it can spread. The siege reveals the wisdom of Hassan's choice of location. Alamut's position on a steep rock outcropping makes direct assault nearly impossible, while its water supplies and storage facilities allow the defenders to withstand prolonged investment. More importantly, the siege demonstrates the assassin's psychological warfare capabilities. While Seljuk forces surround the castle, assassin agents infiltrate the besieging army. Officers wake to find threatening notes beside their beds. Guards disappear without a trace. Poison appears in water supplies. The message is clear: no one is safe from the assassin's reach. The siege's climax comes when Sultan Malik Shah Fern himself dies suddenly in November 1092, just months after ordering the assault on Alamut. While contemporary sources attribute his death to illness, rumors of poison spread rapidly. Whether or not the assassins actually killed the Sultan, the timing appears too convenient to be coincidental, and Hassan's reputation for invincibility grows. Malik Shah's death triggers a succession crisis that fragments the Seljuk Empire. Multiple claimants emerge, each commanding regional armies and competing for legitimacy. This fragmentation provides Hassan with exactly the opportunity he needs to expand his network. Rather than fighting a unified empire, the Nizaris now face divided enemies, more concerned with each other than with the mountain fortress. During this period of Seljuk weakness, Hassan's agents acquire additional strongholds throughout northern Iran. Each new castle follows the Alamut model, positioned on defensible terrain, garrisoned with carefully selected loyalists, and supplied with extensive libraries and workshops. By 1100, the Nizaris control a network of mountain fortresses stretching across the Alborz range. The expansion strategy reveals Hassan's strategic genius. Rather than attempting to control large territories that would require substantial armies to defend, the assassins establish a network of isolated strongholds that can support each other while remaining individually defensible. This archipelago of power allows them to project force throughout the region while maintaining secure bases of operation. Each fortress develops specialized functions within the network. Some focus on training new recruits, others serve as intelligence centers, and still others function as manufacturing sites for weapons and disguises. This division of labor creates redundancy and resilience. The destruction of any single fortress cannot cripple the entire organization. The human cost of this expansion remains carefully controlled. Unlike conventional conquests that often involve massacre and population displacement, assassin takeovers typically result from negotiation, bribery, or infiltration. Local populations often welcome Nizari rule, finding it preferable to the heavy taxation and military requisitions imposed by Seljuk governors. By 1100, Hassan-i Sabbah has achieved something remarkable. From a single mountain fortress, he commands a network that can threaten the most powerful rulers of his age. But the true test of the assassin organization lies ahead, as new enemies emerge who will force Hassan to extend his reach far beyond the mountains of Persia. In 1106, a young Nizari operative named Ridwan enters the court of the Fatimid Caliph in Cairo. His mission: to export Hassan-i Sabbah's revolution to Syria, where Crusader states, Muslim dynasties, and local warlords compete in a deadly struggle for control of the Levant. The expansion into Syria represents the assassin organization's greatest strategic gamble. Unlike the Persian strongholds that benefit from geographical isolation, Syrian operations must navigate the complex politics of Crusader Muslim conflict, while establishing bases in one of the medieval world's most contested regions. The Syrian Nizari movement develops under different conditions than its Persian counterpart. Led initially by local converts rather than Persian missionaries, the Syrian assassins adapt Hassan's methods to local circumstances. They establish their first stronghold at Qadmus around 1132, followed by the acquisition of Masyaf, which becomes their Syrian headquarters. Masyaf's strategic position mirrors Alamut's advantages on a smaller scale. Perched on a hilltop overlooking the Orontes Valley, the castle commands crucial trade routes between Aleppo and the Mediterranean coast. From this base, Syrian assassins can monitor and influence conflicts between the Crusader principalities of Antioch and Tripoli and their Muslim neighbors. The Syrian operations reveal the assassins' remarkable adaptability. In Persia, they primarily target Muslim rulers and officials. In Syria, their victim list includes Crusader knights, Muslim sultans, and local Christian leaders with equal efficiency. This religious pragmatism distinguishes the assassins from other medieval organizations and demonstrates their fundamentally political rather than purely religious motivation. One of the most spectacular Syrian operations occurs in 1152 with the assassination of Raymond II, Count of Tripoli. The Count's death, carried out during a public ceremony by assassins disguised as monks, demonstrates the organization's ability to penetrate even the most secured Christian courts. The psychological impact extends far beyond the immediate political consequences as Crusader leaders realize that their religious identity provides no protection from assassin daggers. The Syrian assassins also develop innovations in their operational methods. While Persian operations typically involve single agents operating independently, Syrian missions often employ coordinated teams capable of more complex operations. This evolution reflects both the different security environments and the growing sophistication of the organization's training programs. Religious and cultural factors influence Syrian operations in ways unknown in Persia. The assassins must navigate not only Muslim-Christian tensions, but also the complex relationships between different Christian communities. Latin Crusaders, Byzantine Greeks, Armenian Christians, and local Syriac populations. This multicultural environment provides both opportunities for infiltration and challenges for maintaining operational security. The Syrian assassins' relationship with Saladin, the great Kurdish sultan who reconquers Jerusalem from the Crusaders, illustrates the organization's pragmatic approach to alliance building. Initially enemies, Saladin and the assassins eventually develop a working relationship based on mutual respect and shared interests in expelling the Crusaders from Syria. Contemporary accounts describe multiple attempts by both sides to eliminate the other. Saladin's forces besiege assassin strongholds, while assassin agents repeatedly attempt to kill the Sultan. The most famous incident occurs when assassins infiltrate Saladin's camp and leave threatening messages beside his bed, demonstrating their ability to reach even the most carefully guarded leaders. However, the practical realities of Syrian politics eventually force accommodation. Saladin recognizes that the assassins' expertise in intelligence and unconventional warfare makes them valuable allies against the Crusaders, while the assassins understand that Saladin's military success serves their interests in weakening both Crusader states and rival Muslim dynasties. By 1180, the assassins have achieved something unprecedented in medieval warfare. They have established a reputation that makes their name synonymous with political murder across 3 continents. But their greatest tests lie ahead as the Mongol Empire rises in the east and threatens to sweep away everything in its path. In 1227, a Mongol messenger arrives at Alamut Castle carrying an ultimatum from Genghis Khan himself: submit to Mongol rule or face total destruction. The messenger's reception reveals how far the assassins have come from their origins as a persecuted religious minority and foreshadows the greatest crisis in their 166-year history. The Mongol threat represents an existential challenge unlike any the assassins have previously faced. Unlike the fragmented Seljuk Empire or competing Crusader principalities, the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan and his successors operates as a unified military machine capable of coordinating campaigns across vast distances. Their siege warfare techniques, learned from Chinese engineers, can breach even the strongest mountain fortresses. The assassin response to the initial Mongol ultimatum demonstrates both their continued confidence and their failure to appreciate the scale of the threat they face. According to contemporary accounts, the assassin leadership at Alamut treats the Mongol messenger with contempt, possibly even ordering his execution, a grave insult in Mongol diplomatic protocol that guarantees brutal retaliation. During the intervening decades, the assassin organization reaches the peak of its influence and operational sophistication. The network now encompasses dozens of fortresses across Persia and Syria, training facilities that produce highly skilled operatives, intelligence networks that span from Spain to India, and economic resources sufficient to maintain independence from any external power. The organization's structure has evolved into something resembling a medieval intelligence agency. Different fortresses specialize in particular types of operations. Alamut handles strategic planning and high-level targets. Lamzar focuses on training and indoctrination. Syrian strongholds manage operations against Crusader and Ayyubid targets. This specialization creates operational efficiency while maintaining the security advantages of distributed leadership. Contemporary accounts, both friendly and hostile, describe the assassins' operational capabilities in terms that seem almost supernatural to medieval observers. Agents appear and disappear without trace. They speak multiple languages fluently. They can impersonate merchants, scholars, soldiers, and religious figures with equal conviction. Modern analysts would recognize these as the hallmarks of professional intelligence operatives, but to 13th century chroniclers, such capabilities seem almost magical. The economic foundations of assassin power during this period remain somewhat mysterious, but evidence suggests a sophisticated system combining tribute from controlled territories, profits from trade route protection, and payments from clients seeking their services. Unlike conventional states that rely primarily on agricultural taxation, the assassin economy emphasizes high-value, low-volume transactions that align with their emphasis on quality over quantity. The organization's intellectual life flourishes during this period as well. Renowned scholars such as Nasr al-Din al-Tusi dedicated years to research in the castle's laboratories, contributing to advances in astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. This scholarly activity serves both practical and propagandistic purposes, demonstrating that the assassins represent civilization and learning rather than mere violence. However, signs of internal strain begin to appear by the 1240s. The organization's success has bred complacency among some leaders, while the constant pressure of maintaining operational security creates tensions within fortress communities. More significantly, the charismatic authority that held the movement together under Hassan-i Sabbah and his immediate successors has begun to fragment among competing claimants to leadership. The arrival of Mongol forces in Persia around 1220 initially seems manageable. The assassins' mountain strongholds have withstood sieges before, and their intelligence networks provide advance warning of Mongol movements. However, the Mongols prove different from previous enemies in crucial ways. They have unlimited patience for siege operations, engineering capabilities superior to any previous attackers, and most importantly, a strategic vision that demands total submission rather than accommodation. As Mongol armies mass on the borders of assassin territory, The organization that once seemed invincible faces its ultimate test. The warriors who had terrorized sultans and crusader kings must now confront an enemy that views their very existence as incompatible with Mongol world order. In 1256, Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan and brother to Mungke Khan, the great Khan of the Mongol Empire, arrives in Persia with a mandate to destroy the assassin state completely. What follows is not merely a military campaign, but the systematic annihilation of a civilization that has thrived for over a century and a half. The Mongol campaign against the assassins represents medieval warfare at its most sophisticated and brutal. Hulagu's army combines traditional Mongol mobility with Chinese siege engineering, creating a military force capable of reducing even the strongest mountain fortresses. More importantly, the Mongols approach the assassin threat with systematic thoroughness that leaves no possibility for the organization's survival. A decree was handed over to the Mongol commander Kitbuka, who began to assault several assassin fortresses in 1253 before Hulagu's advance in 1256. This preliminary campaign demonstrates Mongol strategic patience as they systematically reduce outer fortresses to isolate Alamut before attempting their final assault. The siege of Alamut itself begins in earnest in December 1256. Unlike previous sieges that relied primarily on blockade and attrition, the Mongols employ sophisticated siege engines capable of breaching the castle's seemingly impregnable walls. Chinese engineers construct massive catapults and early cannons that can deliver devastating firepower at previously impossible ranges. However, the psychological dimension of the siege proves even more destructive than the physical bombardment. The Mongols systematically capture and torture assassin agents, extracting information about fortress defenses, supply systems, and communication networks. This intelligence allows them to target the organization's critical vulnerabilities with unprecedented precision. The last Nizari Imam, Rukn al-Din Khursha, faces an impossible situation. During the siege of Maimun Diz, the last Ismaili Imam capitulated to the Mongols. The Imam ordered his subordinates to surrender and demolish their fortresses likewise. His decision to surrender rather than fight to the death reflects the practical recognition that continued resistance will only result in the complete extermination of his people. The surrender negotiations reveal the Mongols' systematic approach to the assassin problem. Unlike previous conquerors who might have been content with tribute and nominal submission, the Mongols demand the physical destruction of every assassin stronghold and the execution of every trained operative. This reflects their understanding that the assassin organization's fundamental structure makes any accommodation impossible. They must be eliminated entirely or not at all. The subsequent capitulation of the symbolic stronghold of Alamut marked the end of the Nizari state in Persia. The fall of the eagle's nest sends shockwaves throughout the Islamic world. A force that had seemed invincible, that had assassinated sultans and terrified crusader kings, has been completely destroyed by Mongol military efficiency. The systematic destruction that follows demonstrates the Mongols' thoroughness in eliminating the assassin threat. Lamsar fell in 1257, followed by the reduction of every known assassin stronghold throughout Persia. The Mongols don't simply occupy these fortresses, they methodically dismantle them stone by stone, ensuring that they can never again serve as bases for organized resistance. The cultural destruction accompanying the military conquest proves equally devastating. Much of this library was destroyed during Hulagu Khan's invasion of Alamut, erasing centuries of accumulated knowledge and scholarship. The loss extends beyond military and political texts to include scientific manuscripts, philosophical works, and historical chronicles that provided the intellectual foundation for assassin civilization. The human cost of the Mongol conquest remains difficult to calculate precisely, but contemporary sources suggest systematic extermination of anyone connected to the assassin organization. Unlike previous conquests that often spared craftsmen, scholars, and administrators, the Mongols view all assassin personnel as irreconcilably hostile and eliminate them accordingly. With the fall of Alamut, the Persian branch of the assassin organization ceases to exist as a political force. However, their Syrian counterparts, protected by geography and circumstance, continue to operate for several more years. The final chapter of the assassin story will be written not in the mountains of Persia, but in the desert fortresses of Syria. As smoke rises from the ruins of Alamut in December 1256, the survivors who escape Mongol destruction carry with them the remnants of an organization that once struck fear into the hearts of sultans and kings. But the story of the assassins does not end with the fall of their Persian strongholds. The immediate aftermath of Alamut's destruction creates a power vacuum in northern Iran that takes decades to fill. The Mongols, while militarily successful, prove less capable at administering the complex networks of tribute, trade, and local governance that the assassins had developed over nearly 2 centuries. Local populations, previously protected by assassin rule, find themselves subject to the harsh extraction policies typical of early Mongol administration. The scattered survivors of the Persian assassin organization face choices that will determine whether any remnant of their movement can survive. Some attempt to maintain the traditional structure of fortress-based resistance, only to be hunted down systematically by Mongol forces. Others choose complete assimilation, abandoning their Ismaili beliefs and blending into the general population. A few manage to maintain their religious identity while abandoning the political and military aspects of the organization. Masha fell in 1267, marking the end of the Syrian assassin state as well, though the circumstances differ significantly from the Mongol conquest of Persia. The Mamluk Sultan Baybars, engaged in his own campaign to expel the Crusaders from Syria, views the remaining assassin strongholds as obstacles to unified Muslim resistance against the Christian invaders. The negotiations between Baybars and the Syrian assassin leadership reveal a more nuanced approach than the Mongol strategy of total extermination. The Mamluks, fellow Muslims, despite their different sectarian affiliations, offer the assassins a face-saving surrender that preserves their lives while eliminating their political independence. This arrangement allows many Syrian assassin communities to survive as religious minorities within the Mamluk state. The economic consequences of the assassin collapse extend far beyond their immediate territories. The organization had developed sophisticated systems for protecting trade routes, collecting intelligence about commercial conditions, and providing security services to merchants operating across dangerous terrain. Their destruction forces traders to develop alternative arrangements that prove both more expensive and less reliable. The psychological impact of the assassin defeat resonates throughout the Islamic world and beyond. For over a century and a half, the organization had represented the possibility that small, well-organized groups could challenge the most powerful states through asymmetric warfare and strategic assassination. Their destruction by conventional military forces reinforces the supremacy of traditional state power while discrediting unconventional resistance strategies. Contemporary chroniclers, both Muslim and Christian, struggle to interpret the meaning of the assassin defeat. Some view it as divine justice against heretics and murderers. Others see it as the triumph of order over chaos. Few recognize that they are witnessing the end of a unique experiment in medieval political organization that will not be replicated for centuries. The fate of individual assassin operatives varies considerably based on their location, skills, and connections. Those with valuable technical knowledge sometimes find employment with new rulers who appreciate their expertise in intelligence gathering and unconventional warfare. Others face execution or forced conversion, while some manage to establish new identities in distant lands. The dispersion of former assassin personnel contributes to the spread of their techniques and methodologies throughout the medieval world. Intelligence services from Spain to Central Asia incorporate elements of assassin tradecraft into their own operations, while military forces study their tactical innovations for potential application in conventional warfare. The religious dimensions of the assassin collapse create lasting tensions within Ismaili communities worldwide. The failure of the Nizari experiment raises difficult theological questions about divine providence, political engagement, and the proper relationship between religious belief and temporal power. These debates will influence Ismaili thought for generations. The immediate consequences of the assassin destruction are clear. A unique form of medieval political organization has been eliminated forever. But the long-term impact of their methods, ideas, and legacy will ripple through history in ways that neither their creators nor their destroyers could have anticipated. In 1273, the Venetian merchant Marco Polo travels through northern Iran on his journey to China. As he passes through the Alamut Valley, local guides point to ruins on a distant mountain peak and whisper stories of the old man of the mountain and his paradise of assassins. The legend has already begun to diverge from historical reality. The transformation of the assassins from historical reality into literary legend begins almost immediately after their destruction. European chronicles, written by authors who never visited the Middle East, elaborate the stories brought back by Crusaders into fantastic tales of hashish-drugged killers and artificial paradises. These accounts, while historically inaccurate, prove more durable than factual records and shape popular understanding for centuries. The word assassin itself becomes the assassin's most enduring legacy. Derived from Hashashin, a derogatory term applied by their enemies, the word enters European languages through Crusader chronicles and eventually evolves into the modern term for political murder. This linguistic legacy ensures that the Nizari Ismailis will be remembered, even if the memory bears little resemblance to historical reality. Modern scholarly research, beginning in the 19th century with Orientalist studies, gradually reconstructs the actual history of the Nizari Ismailis. Historians like Marshall Hodgson, Farhad Daftari, and Bernard Lewis demonstrate that the assassins were sophisticated political actors rather than drug-crazed fanatics. Their work reveals the organization's contributions to medieval Islamic intellectual life, their innovations in asymmetric warfare, and their role in the complex politics of Crusader-era Syria and Persia. The rediscovery of assassin political methods proves remarkably relevant to modern conflicts. Their emphasis on small, highly trained units, their use of psychological warfare, their strategies for operating within hostile populations, and their integration of intelligence gathering with operational planning all anticipate techniques developed by modern insurgency and counterinsurgency forces. The assassin approach to organization and recruitment influences later revolutionary movements in ways that historians are only beginning to understand. Their emphasis on ideological indoctrination, compartmentalized cell structures, and the integration of religious belief with political action provides a template that reappears in various forms throughout subsequent centuries. Contemporary Ismaili communities maintain complex relationships with their assassin heritage. Led by the Aga Khan, modern Ismailis emphasize their tradition of education, philanthropy, and peaceful development, while acknowledging but not celebrating the violent aspects of their historical experience. This approach reflects both theological evolution and practical recognition of the sensitivities surrounding their historical reputation. The archaeological investigation of former assassin sites, particularly Alamut and Masyaf, continues to yield new insights into their daily life, economic systems, and technological capabilities. Excavations reveal sophisticated water management systems, evidence of advanced metallurgy, and the remains of extensive libraries that confirm contemporary accounts of their scholarly activities. The assassin legacy in popular culture proves remarkably persistent and influential. From medieval European romances through modern films and video games, the image of the skilled, dedicated killer operating from mountain strongholds continues to capture popular imagination. While these portrayals often bear little resemblance to historical reality, they demonstrate the enduring power of the assassin mystique. Academic analysis of the assassin organization contributes to broader understanding of medieval political structures, religious movements, and military innovation. Their success in maintaining independence for over a century and a half, despite limited resources and constant external pressure, provides insights into the dynamics of small-state survival in anarchic international systems. The theological legacy of the Nizari Ismailis extends beyond their political and military activities. Their emphasis on esoteric interpretation of religious texts, their integration of philosophy and theology, and their approach to religious authority influence subsequent Islamic intellectual development in ways that scholars are still tracing. The economic innovations developed by the assassins, particularly their methods of financing operations through diverse revenue streams and their integration of trade protection with intelligence gathering, anticipate modern concepts of economic warfare and the relationship between commerce and security. 8 centuries after the fall of Alamut, the real story of the assassins continues to emerge from behind layers of legend and misunderstanding. Their true legacy lies not in sensational tales of drugged killers, but in their pioneering contributions to political organization, military strategy, and the eternal human struggle for survival in a hostile world. In December 2007, exactly 751 years after the fall of Alamut, researchers from the Institute for Ismaili Studies in London announced the discovery of a cache of manuscripts that survived the Mongol destruction. These documents, hidden for centuries in a remote cave, provide new insights into the daily life, beliefs, and motivations of history's most misunderstood organization. The continuing scholarly investigation of the assassins reveals patterns that resonate strongly with contemporary global politics. Their use of asymmetric warfare techniques, psychological operations, and networked organizational structures anticipates many aspects of modern irregular warfare and terrorism. However, crucial differences distinguish the medieval Nizaris from modern terrorist organizations. Unlike contemporary terrorist movements that often target civilian populations to create maximum psychological impact, the assassins maintained strict limitations on their violence. Their targets were almost exclusively political and military leaders whose deaths would advance specific strategic objectives. This precision reflects both practical considerations: indiscriminate violence would have triggered massive retaliation, and apparent ethical constraints that modern analysts struggle to fully understand. The assassin emphasis on education and intellectual development provides another significant contrast with modern extremist organizations. While contemporary terrorist groups often exploit ignorance and social marginalization, the assassins recruited from educated populations and invested heavily in their members' intellectual development. Their fortresses functioned as universities as much as military bases, producing scholars and scientists alongside trained killers. Modern counterinsurgency experts study assassin operational methods for insights into combating contemporary asymmetric threats. Their techniques for maintaining operational security within hostile environments, their methods of intelligence gathering and analysis, and their strategies for maintaining organizational cohesion across dispersed networks provide valuable lessons for both insurgents and those fighting them. The assassin legacy raises uncomfortable questions about the relationship between violence and political change. Their success in achieving limited political objectives through carefully targeted killing demonstrates the potential effectiveness of assassination as a political tool, while simultaneously illustrating its ultimate limitations. The Mongol destruction of their state shows that even the most sophisticated asymmetric warfare cannot indefinitely resist conventional military superiority. Contemporary debates about targeted killing, drone warfare, and special operations often invoke assassin precedents, usually without full understanding of the historical context. The medieval Nizaris operated within a legal and ethical framework completely different from modern international law, making direct comparisons problematic. Nevertheless, their experience provides insights into the long-term consequences of relying primarily on covert violence for political objectives. The survival and evolution of Ismaili communities after the destruction of their militant wing demonstrates remarkable resilience and adaptability. Modern Ismailis, numbering approximately 15 million worldwide, have transformed their tradition of opposition into one of constructive engagement with broader society. The Aga Khan Development Network operates schools, hospitals, and economic development projects throughout the developing world, representing a complete transformation of Ismaili political engagement. This transformation reflects broader patterns in how religious and ethnic minorities adapt to changing political circumstances. The Ismaili experience suggests that groups with strong internal organization and educational traditions can successfully transition from militant resistance to peaceful competition within established political systems. The technological aspects of assassin operations continue to intrigue military historians and intelligence analysts. Their innovations in disguise, infiltration techniques, and weapons technology anticipated many developments in special operations capabilities. Their integration of intelligence gathering with operational planning established patterns still visible in modern intelligence agencies. The study of assassin organizational culture provides insights into how small groups maintain cohesion and effectiveness under extreme pressure. Their emphasis on ideological commitment, rigorous training, and shared sacrifice created organizational bonds that survived imprisonment, torture, and execution. Understanding these dynamics remains relevant for both legitimate organizations operating in hostile environments and efforts to counter extremist recruitment. The ultimate lesson of the assassin experience may be that political violence, however skillfully employed, cannot substitute for broader political legitimacy and popular support. Their initial success reflected genuine grievances and effective organization, but their ultimate failure demonstrates the limitations of purely coercive approaches to political change. The rediscovery and reinterpretation of assassin history continues to yield new insights as scholars gain access to previously unavailable sources and apply new analytical methods to familiar materials. Each generation of historians discovers new aspects of their story that speak to contemporary concerns and challenges. The real story of the assassins ultimately transcends the sensational tales of medieval chroniclers and modern popular culture. Their legacy lies not in the mythology of hashish and artificial paradises, but in their remarkable achievement of building a sophisticated political organization that survived for over a century and a half in one of history's most turbulent periods. The Nizari Ismailis, known to history as the Assassins, represent one of the most remarkable political experiments of the medieval world. From their mountain stronghold at Alamut, they created an organization that combined religious devotion, intellectual achievement, and military innovation to challenge the most powerful empires of their age. Their story reveals the complex relationships between religion, politics, and violence in the medieval Islamic world. Far from the drug-crazed fanatics of popular imagination, they were sophisticated actors who used assassination as a precise political tool within the broader context of asymmetric warfare against superior conventional forces. The assassin legacy extends far beyond their military and political activities. Their contributions to Islamic scholarship, their innovations in organizational structure, and their development of intelligence techniques influenced subsequent historical developments in ways that scholars are still discovering. Their experience demonstrates both the potential and the limitations of small group resistance against imperial power. Their initial success shows how effective organization, strategic thinking, and careful target selection can allow minorities to punch far above their weight in political conflicts. Their ultimate destruction by the Mongols illustrates that asymmetric strategies, however sophisticated, have inherent limitations when facing determined conventional forces. In an age of global terrorism, asymmetric warfare, and ethnic conflict, the assassin experience provides valuable insights into the dynamics of political violence and resistance. Their story reminds us that behind every terrorist or freedom fighter, depending on one's perspective, lies a complex web of political grievances, cultural traditions, and strategic calculations. Understanding their real history, freed from centuries of myth and misrepresentation, helps us better comprehend both historical and contemporary conflicts involving religion, politics, and violence. The ongoing scholarly investigation of assassin history continues to reveal new aspects of their remarkable story. As researchers gain access to previously unavailable sources and apply new analytical methods, our understanding of these medieval revolutionaries continues to evolve. Their legacy challenges us to look beyond simple narratives of good and evil, to understand the complex factors that drive human beings to extraordinary acts of both creation and destruction. If you've made it all the way to the end of this documentary, you're truly a legend. Drop a comment below to let us know you were here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.